This week, the CFTC put XRP in a class of its own. I wanted to go through what actually happened and what is this going to mean for our holdings going forward. Also, there is some information coming to light about Kendra Hill possibly being correct. I wanted to just show you this. Let's go.
Welcome back. Crypto goes mainstream. The Commodities Futures Trading Commission announcing the launch of the first government-supervised crypto trading platform. It allows Americans to instantly buy, sell, and finance digital assets. Fox Business's Darren Botello live in Washington with all the details. Darren, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Maria. Of course, right now, as we all know, you can buy and sell crypto online already, but this is the first time, like you said, a spot trading platform is getting the full backing of the federal government. So why does this even matter to investors that the CFTC is backing this new Binomial platform? These other platforms are legally operating, but here's the catch, Maria. They're often called the Wild West. Basically, it's buyer beware. We've seen this with the collapse of FTX and customers eventually losing out on huge profits they would have had. Their money stayed safe in the market, they would have had it. Now with this Binomial platform, there are stricter standards for transparency, security, and consumer protection to prevent an FTX-style collapse. We spoke exclusively with acting CFTC Chairman Caroline Pham ahead of this new platform going live.
Not only do we want Americans to come back home and to be trading here, where they know that they have the protections that they deserve. But again, that means that American companies that are involved in the crypto industry, they're going to want to build here. They're going to want to invest here. They're going to want to hire here. So this is overall a net benefit to the economy.
And Binomial tells us ahead of their announcement, the actual launch of the platform is set for next week. Maria?
All right, Darren, thank you. Darren Botello, what do you think about that, John?
Well, it's nice to have regulation in this market, but let's not forget that this is a very volatile asset in terms of valuation. That's what consumers have to be aware of. There are going to be times when you're going to have some dramatic increases, and people are going to love that who are holding crypto, and maybe more will get drawn into it, but there will also be a downside where the value of this asset drops sharply very quickly.
Yeah, oftentimes you learn that lesson when you lose money.
Right.
Mac.
Well, I also think it's interesting because for many years, Washington warned us that this was the wild, wild west and we shouldn't be in crypto. And I like that there's going to be rules and regulations, but also there's a platform now. So in the future, I look at this as other stocks and other exchanges. I think they're going to be interchangeable. I also find it interesting that the SEC isn't in charge of this, that there's a shift to a different platform.
Well, I spoke with Paul Atkins about it earlier this week, and I think he's looking at it as if the SEC is working together with the CFTC. But certainly he is looking to enable an easier access for digital assets.
Yes, and I think there'll be consumer confidence when you know that there's some rules and regulations so that we're not just out there in the wilderness trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong. And when you are doing these types of exchanges, am I really investing in something that's a real platform, or am I just giving my money away because fraud is so rampant?
I would love for Fox News to spend a little bit of money and bringing on some people that know the crypto market and could explain this a little bit better. But all good, man. I think, it's positive. You're getting this out in front of, tens of millions of people that watch Fox. And this is a big deal. Binomial press release from October 2024. Binomial's approach is bringing offshore trading models into the United States derivatives industry, presents a significant market opportunity as they establish a compliant derivatives market for assets such as XRP, alongside their plans use of RLUSD for settlement. Now, Ripple did invest in Binomial, and this was a big freaking deal, right? Binomial and Ripple. Let me show you this. Binomial raised 25 million Series C led by Ripple to launch Botanical, a US perpetual futures platform, and explicitly plans to use RLUSD to settle those perpetuals via a CFTC regulated clearinghouse. In public comments, Brad Garlinghouse framed this as building a compliant derivatives market for digital assets such as XRP. We need a flourishing derivatives market so we can have a flourishing spot market and the ETF market, as well as if we want to see XRP used as settlement asset, right, for its true utility here, we're going to need more value on chain, and this is going to be a very important part. XRP is now part of the same CFTC cleared stack as Bitcoin and Ethereum, on Binomial and can be used as margin collateral alongside RLUSD. Binomial is a CFTC regulated designated contract market, a DCM, as a registered derivatives clearing organization authorized to list and clears futures options. That is why it's a big deal. And also, you have seen so many opportunities where Caroline Pham, the CFTC head chairman, has repeated some things that Brad Garlinghouse has said, has also visited Ripple several times. And I think this is one of the best regulators that we've had in the industry in recent times. Also, XRP, the CFTC regulates XRP derivatives and has oversight of the CFTC regulated exchanges that list XRP. All eyes on the clarity. The reason that the SEC doesn't have anything to do with this is because it's not a security. That's all good, all good. And then US Senate bill could officially classify XRP as a commodity under CFTC oversight. I'll give you some more updates on that when we have it. Also, looks like Kendra Hill was right about derivatives. Next up, was she right about Amazon owning 5 billion XRP? What is going on here? Kendra Hill claimed that Ripple's real endgame is to run the entire derivatives market using XRP with a cross-border payments only as a test bed and Codius as the missing smart contract piece. But there is no public evidence from Ripple confirming this, and it remains pure community speculation. What Kendra Hill actually said here. Hill's core claim is that cross-border payments are just a testing ground and that Ripple ultimately intends XRP to process 100% of transactions of the global derivatives market, a sector running into the hundreds of trillions of dollars in notional value. She also ties the vision to Codius, suggesting that Ripple would use a revived Codius smart contract platform to execute derivatives contracts, and that the plan was not been announced by Ripple and is not ready yet. And then how this links back to Amazon or escrow rumor. In the same lore bucket is the old screenshot claiming Amazon negotiated a 2015 deal for 5 billion XRP in escrow, and a secret partnership is supposed to be revealed. That's what Kendra Hill had said. Ripple CTO David Schwartz has said that there's no evidence that Amazon owns such a stake, and blockchain visible escrow accounts show no confirmed Amazon allocation. So is this person, making up stories and tall tales? I don't know. We're going to have to see how this plays out. David Schwartz did say that companies and banks could buy part of the escrow as it's locked up. They can't unlock it, but they can own part of it, buy a wallet if they wanted to. I do think Ripple will probably go down that road depending on how regulation, gets passed in the Senate. Ripple might have to offload some of their XRP just to be regulated here in America. And so we'll have to see how all of this comes to fruition. Once we get the signed bill in the Senate and the president signs it, we can go look at the exact terminology and I will figure it out for you. Ripple did join the International Swaps and Derivatives Association, the ISDA, in 2024, which sparked fresh speculation that the company could target derivatives infrastructure and collateral for use for XRP. However, Ripple's public business remains focused on payments and liquidity products, Ripple Payments, Ripple Liquidity Hub, RLUSD, etc. And there's no announced product where XRP settles mainstream derivatives flows. All right, let me play this for you. This is a great kind of pieced up clip from Joshua Jake about the US's plans for blockchain and tokenization.
Tokenization is the idea of using then smart contracts or tokens on chain to be able to that represent, say, an underlying security. And so then that tokenized security is a security and would be subject to SEC rules by law. But the idea is that if it's on chain, on a blockchain, then there's much more transparency as to where it is. Right now, there's a bit of opacity as to who owns what and where the company usually doesn't even know where its who its shareholders are and where the shareholders reside, where the shares reside. So tokenization has the benefit of potentially having, instead of T+1 now trade date +1 for clearance and settlement, the prospect of maybe T0 now, depending on the instrument. And we have to think about netting and all sorts of other things with respect to some instruments. But in principle, the idea of on-chain delivery versus payment and receipt versus payment, the on-chain is a prospect of de-risking the markets, making them much more transparent and then sure as far as clearance and settlement, because it's always that the gap between clearance and settlement and then delivery and payment is the real introduces risk into the system.
Do you expect this is where financial services is going? Are the major banks and the brokers out there today moving increasingly toward tokenization?
Absolutely, and it's the way the world will be, here in maybe not even in 10 years, maybe even a lot less time, maybe a couple of years from now. So I think that all of this modernization of the markets, I think, is good. And the trouble that we've seen here over the past few years is that the SEC, unlike historically, it never was necessarily at the vanguard of pushing new innovations. It was always a little bit behind the market, of course. But here recently, it's been almost standing athwart the marketplace, and as as all these new innovations were coming about. So that's no more. We're actually embracing it, and I believe that we need to be embracing it to keep the United States at the forefront. As far as cryptocurrencies and whatnot, there were really only 2 countries in the world here in the last few years that were working to make cryptocurrencies illegal, and that was Communist China and the U.S. through the SEC. So that's changed. It's a new day now, and so we want to embrace this new technology.
Thank God for Paul Atkins, and we're glad Gary Gensler is out the door. It's going to trillions.
Categories of traditional finance that are in different stages of adopting this technology, Oracle networks, CRE, blockchains, and so on. There are really 2 driving forces. One force is the market dynamics that generate demand for whatever is tokenized. So what is the demand for a tokenized equity? What is the demand for a tokenized fund? What is the market demand for this thing? If I tokenize something, is there a market? Am I going to be able to sell it? Is there a reason for me to engage in this process of generating on-chain versions of assets, right? The second thing is the efficiency benefits. So the efficiency benefits are things like 24/7, 365 markets, 24/7, 365 collateral management. In traditional markets, the weekend is the weekend. There's no markets.
Yeah.
And collateral management isn't even as good as that. Collateral management happens on a schedule of 21/5. So 21 hours, 5 days a week, which is a bit insane, frankly. At the end of the day, the efficiency, I think, will be a huge attracting force. But I don't think you'll be able to prove the efficiency until there's enough assets on chain that those assets begin interacting with each other and with stable coins to generate markets. So the key thing that I think has been missing, like let's say 3-4 years ago, was that institutions saw that there was enough of a market to generate tokenized things themselves. Now with the stablecoin legislation, there's a big boom in stablecoins and tokenized deposits. And that creates a market that can buy your tokenized asset, basically. So if the market of stablecoin purchasing power was 100 billion before, it's hundreds of billions now. And it's going to be trillions. That's a big market. And the second thing that happened to encourage tokenized assets to go on chain from institutions is even though the stablecoin kind of bill from the US, the Genius Act, doesn't have anything to do with the tokenization of other assets, it's a very clear signal that legislation like this can be passed very quickly.
Listen, guys, as soon as legislation is passed in the United States, it's going to be all hands on deck, and this movement of money will start to happen more quickly, and the prices for our favorite cryptos, our utility assets, will start to shine through. That is the day that I am praying and waiting for. I'll leave it there, guys. Have a great Sunday. Have a great week ahead. I will see you in the next one. I'm Crypto Sen.